Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you are here right now, it's probably because I'm doing a series of videos on how to build a multi-million dollar family business. Something that seems like an oxymoron in this day and age when uh, I've seen so many family businesses start and fail. Even if it was for the family's sake, because of the family, or if it was because of maybe infightings in the family, or people had different expectations, or whatever the world it was. For some reason, maybe the market shifted. We can blame anything in the world that it is, um, but it didn't do well. And I want to do this video and this series of videos as a maybe a source of hope for some of you out there who had the dream that you really wanted to do a family business, and can it actually succeed in this day and age? I've heard so many people say that it can't, that families just can't work together because of the family dynamics, the kind of the intimate home relationship, then the business relationship having to drive, being kind of juxtaposed to that, and that those kind of harsh realities that are often prevalent in business that you can't face with the same brutal, uh, uh, bru- brutal, cold spirited, like kind of relationship, as because you want to maintain that loving kind of soft, gentle, sweet home relationship. And I just in the last video that I talked about building family business, about this, kind of initiating building a family business and then doing the question and answers. Some of that was in there actually, about those kind of dynamics. And maybe in the future I'll do some other series on family, actually building and working with in your family, aside, like, not considering the business portion of it. But in this master series, we're talking about how to build a multi-million dollar family business, because first of all, I want you to know that it can be done. It can be done. I think if you're a great fit, then it should be done. And then there is a lot of undergirding that goes into that we're going to talk about in this series. So, um, who am I? My name is Jason Ellinger. I'm the owner of Taika Translations and TPPteam.com. So you can find us if you just go to TaikaTranslations.com, you can find my company, and we've been operating this with my wife for about 16 years now. We went cold turkey just over 11 years ago, and quit everything else that we were doing at the time and focused solely on this company, and we scaled it to a multi-million dollar company over the past 11 years. And that's what we spent most of our time. I mean, for the past 11 years, that's been our life, growing our family and growing our business. So if you're new to the channel, my name is Jason Ellinger, and I have me and my wife. We got married 16 years ago. We have 8 children. We homeschool our children, and we built a multi-million dollar family business in the process. And my oldest children are just getting involved, actually, in all the workings of the company. Well, my oldest two children have been part of the family business already for the past about year and a half, 2 years, as appropriate for their age. So my oldest son is just about to be 16. My second oldest son will be 14. And in this day and age of technological advancements and all of the information that we have at our fingertips to learn and to grow and to be able to understand things at a rapid pace, they have taken on the just of their own initiative and of their own free will, some of those things. They've learned how we do what we do, and we've talked to them about it, because we run a family owned and operated business. And so I've shared with them, and they're like, well, you know I could help out there. I'd like to be a part in this area, or I'd like to be a part of that area. And so we don't hinder them. We say, all right, go for it. And then we bring them in, and start helping them to integrate into the company in the way that we think that we can see definitely that they have inclinations or talents or desires to grow and to learn more about in that section. So by all means, I don't know that all of my 8 children will work with us in our company one day, but I imagine a good number of them will. The children that we have, so from the 8 children, we have 7 boys and 1 girl. I don't know how that all worked out, but God worked that all out that way, and and so we have 7 young gentlemen that I'm raising up, and one beautiful princess. And so when it comes to the family dynamics and actually building of a family business, that's what I want you to know is that I'm 38 years old right now. I'll be 39 next year. Um, I mean, it seems logical, right? But my wife and we're the exact same age. Not exactly on the same day, but we're the same age. And when we got married 16 years ago, we said, we really want to start we really want to have some kind of family business one day. And so we had a few examples to look at and a few terrible examples to look at. And and actually participated in some family business that the entire thing failed miserably at that time. And we learned a lot of key lessons that from all of those experiences. I'm sharing those with you so that you can be successful in your very first startup, in your very first launch of your family business. So we scaled it to a multi-million dollar level at this point, and it's really been largely my wife is on the executive team with me. I have a brother-in-law involved in that, and another team member that we seconded to the executive team, and we're going to be bringing another on in due course. So to the executive team, and then the rest of our team consists of the accountants, the manage the bookkeeping, product management staff, production staff, and marketing and sales and video editing and so forth. So beyond that, we have a large team of vendors, contractors, people who do different types who fulfill a lot of the projects that we do, and those many of those are based anywhere around the world because obviously my company Taika Translations is a translation company, and so we do um, interpreting and document translation throughout that through that services through that company. Now, when I say that, you're like, well, why don't you just Google why don't you just use Google Translate? Well, we translate a lot of the stuff, everything that Google does not translate, and we interpret everything. We bring interpreters either live and in person or virtual interpreters for different things for very specific events and ceremonies, and maybe doctors' visits, or in schools where there's parent-teachers meetings and so on and so forth, or parent-teacher counseling meetings. Those are the types of things that we provide services for all over the world. So that's a little bit about our company. In addition to that, my wife and I, in that time, we always had a love for the land. We had the love for growing things and just having property and taking care of it. So but we always wanted to do it debt free. We said no, we're not going to do it with debt, because I was Dave Ramsey fan for so many years, and he says debt is dumb, cash is king, and the paid off home mortgage has taken the place of the BMW as a status symbol of choice. And so because of all of that, and my upbringing, since I was 16, that was kind of bashed into my soul. I never was willing to take on debt. And I remember one time in my life, I got a credit card and I used it for staying in a hotel when I was in the United States Air Force. And I felt so bad about that that I cut up the credit card the next day because I had Dave Ramsey in the back, reverberating in the back of my brain saying, but you need to have a plastectomy. You need to have a plastectomy. And so I cut up the credit card, burned that sucker, and called the company. I said, "All right, I'm paying this off today, and I don't want to use it ever again." So we just we decided to live debt free from the very get go with me and my wife back then, and um, that kind of set us on a course for, well, here's the hopes and dreams that we had, um, and obviously those hopes and dreams cost money, and if they cost money, we have to make the money doing something. So if we're going to make the money doing something, how can we do it at the rate at which we want to be able to accomplish these things in our lives? And so as we went on our journey, being married, we did a bunch of different things, from flipping cars. So when I was in the United States Air Force, we lived at Air Force Base there in Ramstein, Germany, and I flipped cars and sold those to other American soldiers coming in and out of the base, because you rotate so often, and everybody's selling their cars and buying cars. And I identified a niche in the market. And I was like, okay, what can we do? Maggie was like, yeah, we can sell these cars. Her name is Margarita, and I call her Maggie. And so we started selling the cars. And then very quickly after that, um, she said, you know what? I've got my linguistics degree and I've been introduced with the translation field. Maybe I should, dabble at that and see what happens. And so she started dabbling very early on in our marriage, like the first year of our marriage. This was all within the first year of our marriage. And she started looking into translating documents and things. This is 16 years ago, when there was not all the technology that we have today. Like now we have such advancements in technology that, I mean, just massive amounts of different tools that we use today to get way more done in massive volume, much faster than we could back then. In any case, she started, and little by little we started to grow a reputation in the marketplace. After that, about 4 years later, um well, I'd gotten out of the Air Force. I spent 2 years in Texas in a family business that kind of fell apart. And then we said, okay, we had a critical moment there where we said, okay, what am I going to do going forward? I was an dental laboratory technologist in the United States Air Force. And I either had the opportunity to go into the corporate world or work into the laboratory space, or stop and invest all of our best efforts from. And so my some of our my highest biggest skills was leadership and financial management and marketing, and her best skills of the incredible production and project management sphere and client interfacing, and dump those into Taika translations, and charge forwards with every essence of what we had to be able to build a company. Because we had dreams, right? We have dreams, and we still have dreams that are ahead of us that we're working towards. But that, like, so at that time was like, okay, owning a couple of cars and a home. And then after we get that, pieces of land around the land that we own. And then after we get that, maybe more pieces of land and cattle to put on those lands. So now we have I don't know, small ranch, I guess, with cows. We have about 60 at the moment, but we're going to be selling a bunch of them. So we're going to be down to 110, I think, or 120, I guess, uh, by the end of the year. And then because that's how our cattle market goes in our area, so we're selling a bunch of the yearlings, and then we're going to be charging forwards with the new birth starting in February next year. So we wanted to do all of these things, and it took money, obviously, and we knew it took more money than just being able to make it at a day job. And so we said, well, we're going to have to do something more. And we started our company, created a vision for what we wanted to do with our lives and for our future. And we charged forward into that, knowing that the more we're able to speed up the process towards getting to those things that we would love to have, and to be able to just be a reality in our lives, the more obviously we're going to have to invest right now in the work that we're doing to be able to get to those places. So by now we have quite a bit of land, a bunch of cattle, and our home is paid off completely debt free, and we're operating this multi-million dollar Taika translations company. So that kind of brings us up to where we are today. Um, more or less. Okay, so I just wanted to kind of give you that intro to who we are and what our lives are, so that you can kind of maybe kind of step into our story and be able to see yourself maybe at some point of that. And just that the lessons that I talk about in these videos, you can grab onto that and be able to take steps forwards to bring your reality that you want in your life actually into your reality. So the journey took us, if you want, you know, I, I'm hesitant to say, like, if you want more, because there's so much of a materialistic mindset that can be wrapped up into that, and it can be taken such the wrong way. But if you want to create an impact, you want to create a legacy, you want to leave your mark and influence the world for good. One of the most powerful ways to do that, first, is your family, right? And the second, community, your church, or what if you're a person of faith. But what are the second and like third is your business, because you work more intimately with more people in challenging situations over a long period of time, and your character will come out and influence all of their lives in whatever way, good or bad. If you have great character, it'll influence them great. If you have bad character, the same will go for that. So If you want to be able to do something like that, then maybe starting a family business is for you. But I want you to know a few things about it. And that's why I'm making this series today. And it's part of the Start series, the kind of the Start couple of videos that I'm going to do. I'm going to do Start. This is Start part one, and Start part two is kind of the more functionality of it next week. But you have to know this if you're going to be able to survive. By the way, if you haven't understood already, please like, subscribe, and hit the notifications bell so that you know when we go live with our next video. So while we're on the page, it's on the screen. It's blaring me in the face. I got to make sure I actually remind anybody who's watching, please like and subscribe to the video. And if you're going to be going on this journey with us, not missing a single episode, so that you have everything you need to actually launch, scale, build your multi-million-dollar family business, please make sure you go ahead and do that. It would mean the world to me. Every time I get a new subscriber, my heart rejoices, and so does the hearts of my team. So do the hearts of my team. And so we look forward to serving more and more people as we continue to grow the channel. I started this about a year and a half ago, and it's been a really cool thing to see how the numbers grow month after month after month. So there's two essential questions that I want you to think about as you are going into starting your own company. If you don't answer these two questions, and as I was writing this, as I was thinking about this content that we're going into this week, if you don't answer these two questions before you do anything, you set yourself up for failure. You set yourself up for most likely failing. Now, when I say that, it's not because I'm trying to be mean, but the brutal reality is that 95% of the companies that start in this year, in this 12-month period of time, in any 12-month period of time, are going to fail within 12 months. You're like, what? Yeah, the statistics are terrible for companies who are starting and go and working through launching in the marketplace. And so many companies don't start and succeed because they haven't dealt with these two very, very essential questions. And that is, why the heck are you doing this? And I think I kind of alluded to that as I was talking through my personal story, as you know, at the beginning, where I'm talking about we had a desire about what we wanted in the future. We wanted a home, we wanted cars, we wanted a piece of property and some land for our cattle and to be able to grow a garden and stuff like that. And but why did we want all of that? And then we have some other future dreams that are bigger and better, and amazing adventures. But if you don't know why you are going to start your family business, if you don't have a deeper and powerful vision that underlines everything and that gives your company, your team, your family, maybe it may be just you and your wife, two peas in a pod at the very beginning, that gives you the ontic referent, the source of reference for where you get your energy, your guiding principles, your when everything goes terrible, what do we do? How do we behave? Parameters. You're going to set yourself up for failure. Too many companies, they start out, well, we just want to not be not have to work for the man, or we just don't want to be in corporate America, or we just don't want to this or that. Well, those are, I mean, lots of people want that, but why more than that do you want to do this thing? For the first, back just over 11 years ago, when we went cold turkey into Taika translations, I sat down for the first week, no, for the first month, and I really worked through. No, it wasn't like all month, every day, 8 hours a day, every month. It was like I had a time every day where I'd work on the vision for our company, why we were doing this, and where were we going. And I'd work on that, and I'd work on that, and work on that, and I'd go talk to my Maggie, Margarita, my wife, Maggie, about it. I'd go talk to her, And then I come back and write down, it's like, well, that kind of sounds right, but that doesn't really sound like what we're after. And I was like, okay, so go back and write more about it. And in the meantime, then I would go work on projects and deal with the finances and do some marketing. And then I would go back to that and build the website, go do some marketing, do just kind of the cycle. And then at the end of that, we had a really good idea of what we wanted to do, where we were going, and why. And so that month was really critical at the very start. And I knew that I needed to have this because Dave Ramsey had talked about it for years, where he talked about you have no plan, you plan to fail. And, if you aim at nothing, you'll hit it every time, from Zig Ziglar. And all those great leaders of the past have said, make sure you chart your path forward. The Bible says, chart the path forwards, and that God will direct your steps. If you actually make a plan and start working on it, then God will direct your steps. I hate it when I hear people say, well, I made so many plans and they just failed. And if you want to make God laugh, just tell him your plans. No, God wants you to make plans. And as you go, be agile to allow him to lead you forwards to the way he wants you to go. You can't see the future perfectly. He knows that tomorrow what's going to happen. Somebody might get a car accident and somebody might inherit $1 million. So who knows? But God knows. But he wants you to chart that path so that you can launch forwards and do that meaningful thing with your life that you're after. And so, the two essential questions that you have to ask yourself at the beginning, and you have to get a solid answer to, and it has to be perfectly true and resonate with your soul and the soul of whoever is in the organization, is why? Why are we doing this? Now, I've made some other videos for if you want to look back in the visioneering section of the course that I made on becoming a great leader. I've talked about when you're making that transition, you need to have a vision for your life and vision for the section or whatever. And so you can go through and hear a lot of the lesson, the entire lesson on how to create a vision and how to work through that process and actually bring that clarity into your life and be able to launch it into the work that you're doing. And so I just want you to know that that resource is available. And if you are going forward and you're thinking about building a family company, don't just do it because you're angry at somebody. Don't just do it because um, you don't want to have to work for somebody. Don't just do it because your uncle told you that this was a great business idea, or your father told you that you needed to do business. You need to go into business and know why you're going into the business. What in the world is the undergirding and the source of reference when all goes to heck? Okay. The very second question that will come immediately after you understand why is, are you willing to do what is required? And it's hinged on the first question, because I want you to understand something. When the reason 95% of the businesses that start in any given calendar year fail is because they vastly underestimated what is required. I remember seeing a video by Ron Swanson. Yeah, I like to watch Ron Swanson sometimes. So Ron Swanson, he said, opening a business should be as easy as, I have some apples, you need some apples. I will sell you some apples. There, I've opened my business and I'm in business. And while I understand that and I appreciate that, um, so often it we get this kind of tunnel vision when we think about what is required to own and operate and run a business, and we don't realize that there are so many things far outside of that that impact you personally, spiritually, mentally, financially, all of the things, and cause you to be able to lose focus, lose drive, and ultimately lose heart in the business that you're doing. And so, are you willing to do what is required? And this decision has to be made up front. I want you to hear that. Number one, you need to know why. So that means you've charted a path, you made a vision, and you've made it very plain, very clear. We're going this direction. We're doing this thing, and here's why. And it has to be more than we're just mad at somebody. It's got to be actually inspirational. There must be a deep reason for that. And then, are you willing to do what's required to do that, to accomplish that thing? Are you actually willing to do what's required? Even if today you vastly underestimate what is required. And you make those decisions up front, because so many businesses fail because they had an idea of why, they had an expectation of what was required, and when they encountered what was really required, they said, "No way. My vision's not valuable. I mean, I don't want to make that level of sacrifice." And then the business, for whatever reasons, market shifts, demand, inability to find personnel, not enough great people in the workforce to be able to carry out, to be able to hire, and maybe bookkeeping, or 10,000 excuses. But really, it boils down to what was required was vastly greater than what you understood, what you knew at the time, and the reason why you were doing it wasn't as valuable to you as the resistance that you faced when you understood what was actually required. And so, if you're going to start a family business, it's going to take every area of your life being brought into the open, and you having to get better in all of those areas. It's kind of like, that's kind of how, actually, how you having, when you have children, you have one child, and you kind of, you have to be a little bit less selfish, and you have to change some of the habits in your life. And now, you can't just go out whenever you want, or go wherever you want at any time you want without thinking anything. You actually have to, do a little more planning. Then you have a second child, and that kind of get multiplied by two, and then you have a third child, and that gets multiplied by like 12. And then and by the time you, so by the time you get to five and then beyond, it's just like, screw it, it's just exponentially multiplied, the level of just like killing, dying to yourself, that you have to do in order to be able to survive the next day and actually build forwards joyfully. That you don't have the luxury of simply focusing on yourself. And in one way, that's, you know it's like, okay, well, you have to love yourself and focus on yourself and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, you do have to be kind to yourself and focus on yourself and love yourself, but it doesn't hurt you to be a little bit less selfish. It doesn't hurt you to be a little bit less about you and more about others. In fact, if you keep this in perspective, it really helps. There's only one of you. The rest of the billions of people in the world, billions, is everyone else. So if you look at it under that perspective, you realize that, wait a minute, there's only one of me. There's billions of others. It means life must not be all about me. It, it's probably about some of those billions of people out there, that, and maybe I'm here to do an important work to impact them in some special way, and not just focus on myself. And so, the two essential questions: why are you doing this? And once you understand that it's going to be vastly more than what you realize is required, are you going to be willing? Is your vision valuable enough to you? The reason why, to be able to withstand the storm of all the things that you don't realize are going to be required, that are. And those two questions, more than anything else, fail family companies. They get into it because they didn't realize it, and they start working on it, and they didn't realize this was going to be required, and that was going to be required. I'm going to have to be less selfish, and being the boss doesn't mean that you show up every day and just bark orders. That you actually have to get to know people that are going to one day betray you, that are going to one day, uh, that are going to have different issues that happen in their life. Like, I've seen so many different ridiculously crazy things, and sometimes it feels like you, as the owner of, or the boss in this thing, are the only one on earth that negative, horrible, terrible, horrible, challenging things can't happen to in life, and you have to keep going anyways. And everybody else seems like they have that luxury, but you don't. And If you're not ready for that, you're not ready to open a family and scale a multi-million dollar family business. And I just want to be real with you on that, because this is the part, this very beginning piece, that people skip because they see an opportunity and they're just mad at somebody. They want to start a little company and go do something, and they don't realize that it's going to take years, that people are going to be developed and grown into it. I remember there was a time in our work where my wife was like, there's no possible way that I can teach somebody to do the work that we were doing. We were working about 16 to 18-hour days at that time. It was within the first 2 years of our business back 11 years ago. And she was like, there's no freaking way that I can teach somebody to do this. It's too complicated. It's too hard. And I said, well, yeah, but 18-hour days are also too hard. And we can't do this perpetually. Our family won't be healthy. Our relationship won't be healthy. We're having our fourth child. Like, this is not gonna work. We're gonna either have to shut this down, or we're gonna have to hire somebody and train them to do this. But it's too hard. We're gonna start slow, and we're gonna do it one step at a time. There's so much that has to be learned. It will be learned in time. And so many times when you look at the picture and you see the vast difference from where you are and where somebody has to be in order to be able to operate at that level, you're like, there's just no way. But part of the first steps of understanding that is that you have to believe that there is a possible way. And actually, that was a lesson that I learned way back years ago, when sometimes one of the most important things for you to remember is that there's always a way to solve the problem, or there's always a way to hire the person that you need. I was talking to a specific business owner, and they just like, there's no possible way to hire somebody for this position. And I'd been in business for a few years at that point, and I was like, well, as I looked at the problem, I was like, I don't know if those are the parameters of the job. That everything's, that's pretty clear. I'm pretty sure that within a couple months, I could have somebody filling that position and doing an excellent job. And it's like, no, there's just no way. The owner, there's absolutely no way, and I just can't get it done. And ultimately, that business goes out of business, and you're like, man, well, there was definitely a way. It was like, nope, there's not enough people in the marketplace that can know how to do it. Sometimes the most important element is that you believe that it's possible, and it's completely philosophical at that point. Like, I believe that it is possible to do this, and that's what I have to help my wife at that time to understand, that what she was doing was incredibly complicated, project managing and all this technology that we're using at the time. However, the current situation was not a perpetual situation that we could operate in, and we wanted a different reality for our family. So we had to understand that either we had to shut down or believe that it was possible. And so we chose at that time to believe it was possible to integrate somebody else into our work and to be able to launch forwards. And so we did. And that's where our very first project manager came from. And he's still with us today, and he's doing a fantastic job. He comes to work each and every day, and he's been promoted multiple times throughout the years into multiple ranks and worked up to the very highest levels in our company, and practically built the bedrock from that our company was founded upon with us. And all of that started because I believed that it was possible. There was two options: close or believe. And I said, no, I'm going to choose to believe. Our vision is bigger than this. It is possible to launch through this problem, train somebody up, and be able to help them to understand how we do it, and bring them in, and ask God to send us the right person. And so we did. And so these two essential questions, I want to make sure that as you start your multi-million dollar family business, that you don't skip this step. That's why I'm spending this entire masterclass today on this idea and what goes underneath it. As you deal with the problems that you're going to face, small problems, small challenges give you the wherewithal to deal with the big ones. Once you've decided that you're willing to do what's required, you will have lots and lots of challenges that you didn't realize were going to be a part of the journey. And that small challenge upbringing, that initiation to all of the small challenges that you're having, are going to help you be able to deal with the bigger ones down the road. In business, the reward for dealing with small problems is bigger and more challenging problems to deal with. And that might sound a little bit depressing, but that really is the case as you grow your company. When you have a $100,000 per year company, you don't have the same problems as when you have a $250,000 a year company. When you have a $250,000 a year company, you don't have the same problems as when you have a 500,000, and so on and so forth, all the way up the chain. And so those problems that you interface with at each and every stage set you up, build the character, forge you to be able to be the person you need to be when you face the next and bigger and harder challenge. I remember that got completely off guard. It was about 6 years ago by now, when we had gone through a particularly hard time in our company, and um, we had been making sales, and we've been making payroll, and we're hiring team members, and we're working through challenging situations. And my bookkeeper found out that we had made a massive error in some of the how we were recording and processing some of the billing for our for some of the vendors. And it started to mass up and become a problem, and it grabbed our attention, and we realized that for the next 12 months we were going to have to work our freaking butts off to change the actual processing system for our finances in that section, and pay a whole bunch of people a whole bunch of money. And that was an incredibly painful and powerful lesson. And that rearranged how we did everything in our company, setting ourselves up to be able to handle much greater financial volume and issues later on. And there was a lot of different programs that we had to, different little things that we had to work out of the processing of our payments, the process of the billing, and the process of the vendors, and the onboarding, and all of those types of things. They were all terribly complicated and worked into that. But once we figured it out, we set up a system. We believed that we could work through that challenge, and we accepted the challenge. We said, okay, if we solve this, then we are actually way better as a company for it on the other side. And so we said, let's receive it and let's get after it. And for the rest of that year, and it actually went, it was in June of that year. So it went into the next calendar year, and it impacted us very, very greatly. But we built and built and built and built momentum the entire time. And it was incredibly exciting to see that month after month after month, when we made the right next decision, we're able to face that challenge with a little bit more strength, a little bit more brute force, and more confidence, that as we work through that physical challenge, so could we work through the next. That, not physical, but financial challenge, so could we work through the next. Because we don't operate on any kind of debt ever. That was a really big deal for us, because we had to make the actual money to deal with all of those expenses at that time that had just gone under the radar. And so, even you may have a system that works now, and then you bring somebody else into that system, and they work on it for a couple of years, and they didn't realize a few things that you thought they realized, and all of a sudden you're in such a situation, even though finance might be your strong point. So small challenges, they give you the wherewithal to deal with the big ones that you're going to face later on. And I love how one of the YouTubers out there talks about, now I don't ascribe to everything that he says, but Alex Hormozy talks about, you hit this brick wall, not brick wall, but it's freaking steel reinforced concrete wall. You're on your journey up like this, and you hit this brick wall, and it may be a financial problem, it may be a marketing problem, it may be our source of where we get our work from problem, it may be production problems, whatever it is. But you hit a brick wall, concrete reinforced, super strong concrete wall. And in order to be able to achieve exponential growth, you have to break through that wall. But nobody can tell you how thick the wall is. Nobody can tell you how hard it's going to be to get through that wall. But that wall is the wall you have to break through in order to achieve the next cycle of growth. And by the way, on the other side of that, there's going to be a wall, and you're going to have to pound through that. And it's like, you just have to take a sledgehammer and keep beating on the wall with all of your strength until you get through. And it's not easy, and you don't know how long it's going to take. And so the small problems, eventually, they set you up to be able to deal with that freaking brick wall. And sometimes one of the most important things to know is just to know that that wall exists and that one day you're going to encounter it and have to work through it. And that's what's required. Remember in the previous slide, why and what's required? Are you willing to do it or not? Because eventually you're going to be there if you're going to start a multi-million dollar family business. So, the reality of emotional, spiritual, and mental ups and downs at all stages. So, if you're going to be a business owner, especially a family business owner, and working through the stages of building a multi-million dollar company with your family, there's going to be emotional, there's going to be spiritual, there's going to be mental ups and downs all along the way. And like I said before, you remember when I was talking about sometimes it feels like that you are the only person in the world that is not allowed to be shut down by these things. I want you, the reason I'm bringing this into your attention is because I want to make you aware of it. There are so many ups and downs. Like I heard Dave Ramsey say one time that like the entrepreneur is the only one that can go from a the mountaintop experience to a depth of despair and depression experience 100 times every single day as they work through the problem the challenges that they're facing in their business and overcoming them. And the reality of the emotional, spiritual, and mental ups and downs, it is real. It impacts you. It comes in cycles. There are seasons, and if you're not prepared for that, and you get into a really a low season, you might want to roll. Just put up the white flag and just go home. But if you work through them with the undergirding of your why and actually have those parameters of your why guiding you forwards and giving you that strength and tenacity to continue on, you will come out so much better and so much stronger, and you will be a different person that you were when you started. As I've gone through building our company, I've become a vastly different person than I was when I started, and some, in a very good way. But I mean, I some of the challenges I would prefer that I didn't have to go through, but it has caused a much better reality as to the person that I am today. And that will be the same for you. And honestly, so many people try to avoid pain and suffering and challenges at all costs. These emotional, spiritual, mental ups, downs, they just try to completely avoid them and stay away from it at all costs. But the reality is, as you work through each one, you get stronger, better, and more capable for your future. Once you have worked through one really deep low, one of the biggest things that I'd like you to do is to never forget about that season. In our brains are wired the way that we try not to remember the really negative, powerfully, horribly ugly events that happened in our life so that it never happens again. But the reality is, once you've gone through some of these really powerful negative depth of despair experiences, they set you up for being able to go through the next. And so I just want you to understand that emotional, spiritual, and mental ups and downs are going to be a part of the journey at all stages. Sometimes at the very beginning, it might be like, oh my gosh, how are we going to ever get work to be able to pay all our bills? Sometimes at you're at the stages where you're making a massive windfall of cash and massive profits, it's like, man, how the meaning like it took us so much effort way back then, and it seems like it took us so little effort now to make so much that it kind of feels meaningless. And unless you have that deeper why undergirding everything and guiding you the entire way, you're going to crash, you're going to burn, you're going to burn out, and you're going to throw in the towel and give up. And so I want you to realize that these are real realities, that these are actual realities in the life, in in the experience of a multi-million dollar family business person. Any business person, but especially for you. So This is kind of goes back to that point I mentioned at the beginning. It's not completely back, but I want you. This is kind of build. Each point of here is building on the last. When you understand what's required, and you have the mental, emotional, spiritual ups and downs within that human reality, you still have to keep going. Why? One word almost trumps everything else in business: consistency. Sometimes, in order to succeed, to be able to make it through to the next business cycle, you simply have to be consistent, show up yet again, make the right next step, and keep going. And that sometimes is enough. Sometimes that's all you can do. You sent out all the marketing emails, you made all the videos, you talked to you did your vision casting with your team, you've had your one-on-ones, you've done all you can do. And within this reality, you just have to keep going, being consistent. Actually show up again and keep going. As the owner or as the leader of this thing, you don't have the luxury just to lose it and to be gone. If you're going to take a vacation, absolutely go and take a vacation. There's been times when I've taken an entire month and been gone. That's great when you can get to that stage of business and the thing keeps operating. It's amazing. But within the human reality of all of those challenges that you will face, the uh, uh, emotional, spiritual, mental challenges that you're going to face, you still have to keep going. And the way to keep going is to make sure that that why is so nailed, it could is seared into your spirit, into who you are as a person, that it drives you forwards in those dark and depressive and challenging moments. Whether it's that moment when you have lots of cash and you're kind of a little bit, you're like, man, you know, this seems so frivolous, or it's that moment when a team member that you've invested in for years and years and years has betrayed you, and you felt so you don't even know how to look at the situation. You're like, man, I thought we knew each other. I thought that actually the person was actually listening to what I was saying for the past 10 years of my life. In fact, null and void, nothing. Like there's no the history is it seems like it's just evaporated into thin air and there's nothing to it. And you're like, man, it's that relationship is broke, and I'm feel broken. But what do? You still keep going, because in order for your business to be able to stay in business and make the mark, impact, leave the legacy that you set out to create in the first place, which is why it's the very first question, you have to keep going. That stopping is not a luxury that you have. You burnt the ships. That's why they burnt the ships when they came to fight. They floated those to the shore, took them out into the water, burned the ships. And they said, guys, the only direction is that way. If we're going to survive, we have to win. And so you have to burn the ships and you have to keep going. So the question I have for you, I want you to think about, if you're going to be building your family business, is what is your source? What is the source that's going to drive you when the night is long, when the betrayal is deep, when the times are incredibly good and the money is the windfall of cash is massive, when the brick wall, the reinforced steel concrete wall is thicker than you thought it was, when you have a super easy time getting all the team members in, and when you have a time when you're not really sure if it's possible to do that, but you have a belief, you choose to believe instead of saying no, it's not possible, we can't do it. I've taught my children, I've tried to teach my children over the years that I don't want them to hear that I can't, because you can. You can say that you won't. That's fine. But don't you dare tell me that you can't, because you can, and it's within you. Henry Ford said, if you think you can or think you can't, you are correct. And so I really want to drive this home. If you don't have a source where all of your strength comes from, for me, that's God. And for me, the vision for the family that God has outlaid in the Bible, and for our purpose on this planet is deeply woven into everything that we do in my company. And then impact, obviously, love the Lord God with all thy heart, soul, and mind, and love thy neighbor as thyself. That's even one of our core values. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It's woven into every single thing that we do. Because when the going gets good or when the going gets tough, we have to have those parameters that are going to drive us to the next stage. And if we don't, we get off course, we get out of off keel, and ultimately we get ourselves into a storm that's unnecessary, that might sink the ship. So I just want to relay that message to you in this masterclass, because without that, none of the rest of it matters. So I hope you start on the right foot and that you actually do decide, weave into your soul this, your source, your why. So seared into your mind and heart that it drives everything you do forwards, and it causes you to be able to withstand the storms of life and business, the ups and downs that you're going to face, and give you the ability to make the impact that you set out to make in the first place. So, next video is going to be on actually starting your company, and what are some of the elements, the main elements that must be in place. Talk a little bit about vision in the next one, but we're going to go on to some other important and a little bit more tactical things, and to be able to understand what must be in place in order to be able to launch forwards in your business. So I thank you so much for spending this time with me today. I know it's very valuable time that you had, and you chose to spend it with me today. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be able to share this with you. So if you are going to be free next Wednesday at 8:30 Central, 9:30 Eastern, please join me, like the channel, subscribe to the videos so that you don't miss the next one coming out. And I will see you next week in our next masterclass on building a multi-million dollar family business, something that I actually do each and every day, and I continue to scale it forwards. And I look forward to seeing you there.